Okay, so we've been doing marriage and mental illness for a little while now, and it's incredibly successful. Last week we were off air because I was just incredibly busy. I was with speaking engagements, and I wasn't able to spend the time that I needed to get the marriage and mental illness podcast out. So today I'm just going solo. My wife is busy, and I'm actually going to part two of this will be her response. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over the three simple tips or pieces of advice that I give anybody that is looking to get married, be married, improve a marriage, whatever. When you've got a mental illness and you're trying to run a relationship, it is like trying to run a marathon wearing a car. It is incredibly hard. And doing it by yourself is impossible. So a marriage has got to be about equality of respect and equality of ownership. So both of you need to have complete and total respect for each other, and you need to both own the relationship. Okay. So number one for the tips to have successful marriage, in my opinion, first and foremost is marry your best friend. Why is it that I see a lot of married couples who treat their best friends better than they do their spouse? Would you ever swear at your best friend? Would you ever curse them out for something? Would you ever take your best friend to task over anything? Or would you be careful about what you say? Would you be guarded at times? Would you be careful? Would you be nurturing of that relationship and sure that you didn't say something that you knew was going to upset them? Why is it that we treat our best friends better than our spouse? I truly do not understand that. I really, really don't. So you've got a best friend. Think of your best mate, whoever it is in the world. You love them to bits. You love them completely. You love them no matter what. You do anything that you could to maintain and help that relationship. If that person was ever in trouble, you would be the first person there. If they called you at 2 a.m, it wouldn't matter. You wouldn't criticize. You wouldn't judge. You would just be there. Now, what if your best friend makes you mad? Well, you're going to work it out. You're going to figure out what's gone wrong and you're going to try and sort it because that friendship is important to you. Now, how is a friendship, a mate, more important than the person that you are married to, your spouse? I find this to be a dichotomy that is hard for me to get my head around. People ask me why my wife and I are so open and honest with each other. It's just it's the way we've always done it, right from day one. We first got married and then something happened. She left the bottle off the tomato sauce or something. And I was about to go into my usual Irish way of freaking out and having a big argument about it. I took one look at her face and her heart was broken. Like, why is this important? And in that moment, I realized that nothing in my life is more important to me than her. More important than a broken glass, more important than a missed payment of something, more important than anything in our relationship. But then I see friends of mine, and you can see the anger and the angst between them and their spouse. And I know that my friends would never talk to me the way that they talk to their spouse. For some reason, they figure that the way that they're talking to them is okay. Now, things are going to get tough, and even best friends have disagreements and falling out. And me and my wife are the same. But the way that we deal with it is, first of all, thinking, hang on, this is my best friend. this is the most important person to me in the world. Is what I'm feeling more important than our relationship? And no, absolutely not. The relationship is the number one thing, and it's the thing that I would die to protect. And I let her know that as much as I possibly can. Now, my next tip for having a good and successful marriage, and this is a tough one, it's to care more for the other person than you care for yourself. Man, that's tough. I know what I want. I know what I want to do. I know where I want to be. I know how I want things to work out. I also know that my wife has expectations. She has things that are important to her. When we talk about compromise, compromise is the art of everybody getting something, but nobody is completely happy. But what happens if you, in that compromise, allow the other person to be more happy? Now, I'm not talking abuse. Abuse is something different, where you sublimate your needs and desires to the autocratic and dictatorial rule of another person. Now, that's abuse. But when you're in a loving, caring, sharing relationship, caring more for the other person, saying that I'm going to put their needs before my own. Alrighty. Thank you very much to Mary, and I think that was JJ who jumped on. So just getting back to our points. First point, marry your best friend. I think we can all agree that trust, respect, and communication are obviously the cornerstones of any good relationship. But if you marry the person you care about most in the world, your absolute best friend, the person that you can spend all night talking to, the person that you will never run out of things to talk to about. If you marry your best friend, whoever that is, and I'm not trying to be silly here, and I'm not being facetious. I said that to a woman once, and she said, my best friend is a gay man, and I can't marry him. I said, I understand what you're saying, but would you not prefer to have that kind of friend relationship with the person that you're going to be married to for potentially the rest of your life? Or would you be happy half-assing that relationship and just jump in with somebody because you're lonely? That's what I'm talking about there. The second one, care more for your spouse than you do for yourself. So care more about them than you do for yourself. Now, we've also explained that abuse is a whole different story there. If you're in a relationship where the power dynamic is shifted against you, get out of that relationship. Domestic abuse of any way, shape, or form is not acceptable. But caring more for my wife than I do for myself, the thing about that is that I know that she cares more for me than she does for herself. When there's a last thing at the end of it, like a Chinese dinner, there's the last like spring roll or something, both of us insist that the other take it, especially if we know that they want it. And we've had to come to a shorthand where it's, hey, I don't feel as strongly about this as you do, so you go ahead. Marry your best friend. Care more for your spouse than you care for yourself. Now, when there's kids involved, kids make everything better and harder, and they change your priorities, and your world shifts when you have kids. For me, though, I love my children. I would do anything for them within my power to do. I will love them as long as I have breath to love anyone. They are the most important people in the world to me, except for my wife. My wife chooses every day to be with me. Now, my kids don't have a choice. They didn't get to choose their parents. And one day soon, they will leave the nest and become independent, grown up individuals, hopefully making good choices for themselves. But my wife, she could leave tomorrow. She doesn't have to stay with me. She chooses every day. When I go to bed at night time, my wife and I have different sleep schedules. My wife goes to bed a bit earlier. When I finally go to bed every night, I look at that woman and I wonder why she's with me. I am just so completely grateful that she chooses every single day to be with me. Now, a lot of people are going to be a little bit down on the thought of you need to love your wife more than your kids. But that's the relationship that I want to have with my wife. Caring more for your spouse than you do for your kids. It makes me sick when I hear of married couples that get to a point in their life where the kids leave their nest and they've got nothing else to talk about. They're not friends anymore. They're not best mates. One day when my kids move out, hopefully as mature grown-up adults, my wife and I will still enjoy spending time together. I cannot wait to travel with my wife. I cannot wait to go on dates with my wife. The idea that we can just leave the kids at home and she and I can go see a movie just by ourselves. I am so excited about that, and I'm so ready for that. And when people talk about marriage, this is the kind of relationship I hope that they have. And it's actually the type of relationship that I assumed that people have. My wife and I have been married 26 years, coming on 27. My parents married for over 50 years. Her parents were married for over 50 years. In our family, marriage is forever. Now, my sister got a divorce, and my wife's brothers, they haven't chosen to get married. They are with significant others that they've been with for many years, having great relationships. And marriage is just a title for them. Their relationship is good. But in our families, the idea, especially for me and my wife, was that when I married this woman, it was for forever. My dad actually pointed out that when we did our wedding vows, we didn't say them loud enough. He couldn't hear them very well. And I said to him, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to my wife. I was talking to this beautiful woman, and I wasn't going to shout it at her so people could hear. When I took the vows, I made a promise to her. And her promise to me has been held up time and time and time again. And I've seen the love that I have for her shown back to me a million times over in a million different ways. It's an equal partnership. And you know what? Before we got married, we were best friends. I got to know her as a person. Yeah, there was romantic feelings and stuff there, but we both held off on that. Not because of any other reason, except we just were like, you're a good friend of mine. And then when the romantic feelings started to bubble up and become part of our relationship, it was like, this is fine, but I want to guarantee that our friendship is maintained, because the friendship was more important than the romantic side of it. Now, of course, you fall into that relationship. You've accidentally married the greatest person in the world. You have to keep that romantic stuff alive. But for me, I let my wife know every single day that she is the most important person to me. She will often ask as a joke in the family, who is daddy's favourite person? All three kids will instantly say mum. Who's daddy's favourite? Mum. And honestly, I believe that's healthy. It's what I saw with my parents. I could not disrespect my mother, even if my father wasn't there, because dad would lose his mind. You don't respect the woman that I love. Yeah, she's your mother, but she's my wife, and nobody's going to speak to my wife like that. I absolutely love that. There was no doubt in my mind that my mum was more important to my dad than me. And honestly, I think that's the healthiest thing that I ever learned from my parents. And they might listen to this. So I'm not telling you anything that they don't know about. There is nothing simple about marriage. There is nothing simple about maintaining a relationship. And it's easy to be facetious with these three things. Marry your best friend. Marry the person that you want to spend all night talking to. And you know that you'll want to be talking to them in next week, and the week after, and the week after that. When my wife and I are together, we just don't shut up. We just keep talking. Sometimes it's about the kids. Sometimes it's about shooting a breeze. Sometimes it's about faith, hopes, and dreams. Sometimes it's just about spending time enjoying. How are you doing? How are things going? Is everything all right? How's work? Have I caught up on everything? Care more for your spouse than you care for yourself. Only works in a relationship where the other person feels exactly the same. They care more for you than they do for themselves. Now, on day one of my marriage, did I just go, wow, my wife cares more for me than I care for her? Or so she cares more for me than she does for herself? No, it took months and years of showing my love for her as being more than my love for myself, and seeing exactly the same thing come back. Knowing that the vows that I made were the same vows that she made to me. The last one is particularly when you have kids. Care more for your spouse than you do for your kids. They're choosing to be with you. They are clearly more important. When your kids leave, and hopefully one day they will leave, I still am not going to have an empty nest because I'll have my best friend with me. And you know what? We'll have even more time together. And that is just, I am so looking forward to that. And I know it's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt her when the kids move out. I will miss them. But my best friend will still be there. And we'll be doing cool stuff. Somebody asked earlier why I put mental illness in the title of today's show. It's because one day I went to work and I came home and my mind was broken. I had complex PTSD, severe depression, chronic anxiety, heightened awareness. All of the worst symptoms that you can go through with mental illness. Hallucinations, auditory, vision, no sleep. And I did nothing to help my marriage along. But my wife and I had spent 15 years before that incident letting each other know that they were more important than myself. So when I needed help, my partner in life stuck with me at times when I know that she probably shouldn't have. And I'm so incredibly grateful. I'm so thankful. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to let her know how grateful I am. There is nothing simple or easy about a marriage. I don't even think there's such a thing as a successful marriage. People may
Thank
look
you
at
for
ours,
listening to
mine and
Shattered
my
the
wife's, and go,
podcast.
"Oh wow, you
I'd
guys
like
have
to
got it all
thank
together."
our
No,
producer
we
Meredith
don't. I
Brosnan,
still fall
our
short
executive producer
every
Tori
day.
and Lau,
I still
and the band
disappoint
Adelaide
myself
for allowing us to use their
in
song
how I treat
as
her,
our theme.
in how
Go
I
to
speak to her, in how I think
shatteredthepodcast.com
about her
for
at
more
times.
information.
Marriage is a journey that never stops, and you don't want it to stop. I want to see where this journey goes. I want to see what our relationship is like in another 27 years. Don't forget, Marriage and Mental Illness comes out every week. You can check it out through the STP Shattered podcast. It is Shattered, the podcast. It's living with mental illness. That is the thing that underpins all of the conversations that we have, is that life can succeed and will succeed even through the trauma of mental illness. Have a great day. Check out STP Shattered, the podcast, and Marriage with Mental Illness. Bye for now.